Pourquoi je ne peux pas écrire un chant patriotique,
Welcome to Montreal.
un chant à notre gloire à tous.
Initially, when this building was built, the transparency was something that was really, really important. There's 3 floors, and so we wanted to have some sort of transparency within the 3 floors. If you look up here, it's open, wide open space. So this created a huge echo problem because it's so wide, it's so open, it's so huge. For that reason, Guy Laliberté asked one of the Montreal artists to create a piece of art to minimize the echo, which is what we see here. This is really interesting because it's made out of old Saltimbanco and Alegria costumes, as well as denim. So it's still, we can still hear the echo, but it was a unique way to try to minimize the problem. So here we have what I call the welcoming center for the artists. Since the artists come from everywhere around the world, we have the big sisters that take care of the artists. When an artist comes from elsewhere, from outside of North America, we'll give them a sort of welcome kit, which will explain where to get their groceries, if they get sick, what to do, where the doctors are, how to get money. So pretty much we'll explain to them how to live regular life here in Montreal, how the public transportation works, etc. If ever they have any problems, they come here, and we have about 5 interpreters. So it's really, really interesting. Sometimes you'll see some trainings that will happen in English, and while the coach is speaking, you'll hear like 4 or 5 little voices whispering, doing the translation. So it's quite interesting. So this is really an important aspect of Cirque du Soleil because we don't want to leave them on their own. We have the specific training, which is about a month. The specific training is really to learn an existing act. So it's to go onto a show that exists already. So for example, we need a juggler. We'll invite a juggler here. They'll learn the act and then go on tour. The general training is something that lasts between 4 to 6 months. And that's really to do the transition between athlete towards artist. So that's longer. And then for the creation process, when we create a brand new show, we'll invite the artist to come here for 9 to 10 months, and they will create their own act. So that's a longer period, and that's really part of the creation process of a new show. So it depends, it varies. Usually this is a really, really happening studio. There's a lot of training that happens. As you can tell, it's really a flexible space. So we have a fast track, which is back there. We have a trampoline. We have any sort of aerial apparatus that can be hooked up inside this studio. As I mentioned earlier, all of our artists will come here at the head office for some sort of training, whether it's general training, specific training, or during the creation process, we'll invite the artist to come for about 9 months to sort of create the show. This is the area where the artists will train for, regardless what their discipline is. For example, you see here in the back, there's a trampo wall. This is used for the show called Dralion. It's really interesting. You see the wall and there's platforms, and at the bottom of that wall, usually there's a trampoline. So the artist will jump on the trampoline and walk up the wall. This is a temporary installation just because we needed it for specific training, but it just goes to show you how flexible the space can be. As you can tell also, one thing that's quite interesting is that there's a lot of natural light that comes into the studios. Most of the training studios are really dark and there's not really much natural light that comes in. So that was something that was really important when we built the head office here, there's windows that give onto the studio. So when you, for example, you have a meeting in one of these offices, you always remember what you're working for. You can see the artists jumping up and down. So you'll see there's a lot of raw material in the head office in order to remind us from where we come from, because circus arts are a street art. We come from the street, and so it's something that reminds us always from where we come from.